Itsuki shrugged it off. He said the beasts in there had trash defense, so he just mowed them down. The glowing butterfly floated in front of him. Itsuki looked confused and asked what it was. Chawa calmly explained she was a Shikigami user, and this was her summon. Itsuki watched the little butterfly dance near his hand. He whispered its name, Tamacho, admitting it was his first time ever seeing one. It looked beautiful. Then he asked what other jobs were out there. That caught her off guard. She asked how he didn't know the basics, then explained that jobs were split into 4 main categories. According to her, he had probably met 3 of them already. She raised her hand to continue. The first group, the elementalists. Elementalists control 7 flavors: fire, water, wood, metal, earth, wind, and lightning. They are the most common type out there and have the highest starting power of any job. She noted that his lightning-using classmate and that buff, iron-skinned guy from earlier were both elementalists. Then, she introduced the second type, which was the Shikigami users. These users summon spirits that only obey them. A window popped up by the butterfly. Tamachu, E rank level 15. Skills and status? Both are totally hidden for now. Choha went on, explaining a Shikigami stays by its master from birth. Another system window flickered open, showing her personal status. Izumi Choha, human, level 6. Job, Shikigami user. Gift grade 2. Everything else? Classified or hidden. Finished with the basics, she asked for any questions. Itsuki eyed the butterfly and asked why her level was lower than her summon's level. He asked if she was actually a veteran. That comment stung like a needle. She wondered if Itsuki even knew how to sugarcoat things. Choa facepalmed and explained that Shikigami soak up experience and level up on their own. Usually, that means they end up outpacing their masters every time. Hearing that, Itsuki's face went dark. Shadow swallowed half his features as his eyes took on a cold glow. He muttered that if you fight a summoner, it is faster to just target the person. Chua's eyes went wide. She felt that dark vibe coming off him again, and wondered what was going on. Itsuki just looked at her calmly. What else is there? You have only mentioned 2 types so far. Chua pulled herself together. The third job, she said, was the most mysterious with almost 0 public info. She pointed right at Itsuki and told him his job was order breaker. He stayed silent as she kept going. She explained this job was a total mystery because every order breaker had unique powers, like that blue lotus flower he flashed earlier. Then she dished that some could swap body sizes instantly. Others churned out endless clones or stretched like rubber bands. She even compared these wild order breakers to the standard awakened classes we usually see. She laid it out. Normal classes are ranked C through S, but order breakers? They rock Z rank skills, which are basically cheat codes that break the whole ranking system. Choa mentioned that these rare, exclusive skills are exactly why order breakers get treated like total VIPs. But there is a catch. If an enemy figures out their secrets, they are toasted. That is why her old man blew a fuse earlier when she tried digging into his personal skill set. She gave him a dead serious look, saying he was a total freak of nature, even for an order breaker. Based on what she saw, he was juggling 3 different skills. 2 of those were supposedly locked for elementalists only. Itsuki started sweating, suddenly noticing their teacher had vanished into thin air. He realized he would be in deep trouble if Choha kept spilling his secrets. Trying to pivot, Itsuki asked about that last job, something he had never even heard of before. Choha kept her cool when he asked about it. She just smirked and said he would get the full explanation once he actually saw it for himself. Call it karma. She told him it was his punishment for being so secretive. Itsuki just let out a long sigh and muttered a simple, "Fine." As she walked off, Choha mentioned the students he saved were totally safe now. Then she dropped the big question, "What is your next move?" Itsuki said he wanted to grind the stage a few more times. Choha whipped around, looking at him like he was crazy. She asked if he knew about stage cooldown periods. She warned him this specific spot had a brutal cooldown. He would not be able to step back inside for at least 2 whole days. Itsuki's eyes went wide. He had no clue cooldowns were even a thing. Suddenly, it clicked. This was how Kinoshita kept everyone else locked out of the stages. He was not giving up. If he could not buff his clear orb passive right now, he would just have to crank up the lethality of his Lotus Burst instead. Itsuki turned back to Choha and asked if there was a stage crawling with disaster beasts. Choha paused, scrolling through her mental map for a place like that. She flashed a confident grin and picked the perfect spot. She explained the beasts there were not high level, but their sheer numbers were absolutely insane. It was called the Locust Wasteland. She estimated at least 100 locust beasts lived there, and most awakened hunters just turn tail and run when they see that swarm. She looked him in the eye and asked what his plan was. Taking on that many without area of effect skills was basically suicide. For those in the back, AOE means area attacks. Itsuki did not blink. He just told her he was going in. He secretly laughed, knowing she had not seen his Lotus Burst yet. She had no idea he was packed with area damage. A stunned Choha asked if he was serious. She warned him again that he would get wrecked without area skills, but Itsuki just shrugged it off, telling her not to sweat the small stuff. Some hunters nearby were losing their minds. One of them asked if he was actually heading to the Locust Wasteland, calling him a total madman. Another guy whispered that once Kinoshita Reiji heard about Oga, he would be hunting him down for sure. The group scrambled to leave before they got caught in the crossfire. A few minutes later, Kinoshita Reiji rolled up to a total ghost town. He was fuming, demanding to know where the hell everyone had gone. His bodyguard stepped up and reported that the target had already vanished. Reiji could not believe it. He was beyond shocked. It had been only 30 minutes since the kid entered, yet he had already cleared the Flaming Rock execution ground. The bodyguard admitted it sounded impossible, but it was facts. He asked for the next move. Kinoshita Reiji gritted his teeth, feeling like this punk was playing him for a fool. He noted that if the target used skills, there would be magic traces everywhere. He barked an order for his bodyguard to call the hound and track him down. Kinoshita Reiji screamed for them to bring the target back alive. He promised to give the kid a front row seat to what a living hell felt like. Meanwhile, in a dark, grimy alley, a man pressed his back against the wall. He was hyperventilating, wishing he had never taken that sketchy assassination contract in the first place. He cursed under his breath. He had no idea Kinoshita Reiji kept such a monster on the payroll. He totally regretted this job. The assassin collapsed, shaking like a leaf. He gasped for air, knowing that without his earth escape trick, he would be a corpse by now. Sweat was pouring down his face as he struggled to breathe. He peeked around the corner, whispering that he might finally be in the clear. He scanned the shadows, eyes bulging with terror. Suddenly, a massive beast lunged out of the dark with dripping jaws. Sharp teeth and glowing red eyes were the last things he saw. Before he could even scream, the beast slammed him into the dirt. He choked as those massive fangs grazed his throat. A cold, calm voice cut through the air. A man stepped out of the shadows, telling the beast, Death, to chill out. Apparently, the rat had something to say. The giant wolf backed off just enough to let the man squirm. The target lay there, broken and bleeding, staring up at his nightmare. With a trembling voice, he asked how they found him. The long-haired man in the trench coat just looked down at him with zero emotion. He explained that their pet, Death, has an insane nose. He can literally smell the scent of death on guys like him. This was the hound Reiji mentioned. Meet Charles. He tipped his hat with a smirk. He told the guy that Death could smell the murderous vibes he was putting off. Terrified, the man started sobbing and begging for his life. He was a complete mess. Charles just stood there with a chilling, wicked smile. He mentioned that Kinoshita would be pissed if things got messy. Plus, Death had not eaten human meat in forever. Then, Charles's eyes flashed a demonic red. He snapped an order, telling Death it was dinner time. The massive black wolf roared and lunged, its jaws wide enough to swallow him whole. A second later, it was over. The man was gone. The wolf just sat there quietly next to the long-haired man. He gave it a cool look and nodded. Finally leveled up, a blue HUD popped up with all the beast's stats. It is a death hound, Guang prizing, level 16. Skill 1 is Death Smell, C rank. It tracks magic traces and finds the source. Next is respawn desire, the rank. When the Shikigami bites it, respawn time drops fast. Attack 250, agility 250, magic 150. Right then, his phone started buzzing. He checked the ID and picked up. He told whoever was calling that his business there was officially wrapped up. His face dropped as he listened. Was Oga really hurt that bad? He wondered if someone actually managed to find that stubborn ogre's weak spot. Got it? I am on my way, he said before hanging up. He turned back to the wolf with a smirk. New prey just dropped, he told the beast, ordering it to move out now. Later on, out in a golden field called the Locust Wasteland, a weird dome building sat way off in the distance. Itsuki and Choha walked up a narrow dirt trail. Itsuki stared at the big building and whispered, "We here?" He looked at the endless wheat and wondered if bugs were actually hiding in such a peaceful spot. Walking right next to him, Choa broke it down. She explained that disaster beasts always pick a vibe that fits them when they invade our world. So, Choha rubbed her head and said this stage was super dangerous. Like, it was so bad they were already planning to just tear the whole thing down. Confused, Itsuki compared it to the flaming rock site. This place is actually lower than level 13, he noted. Why go that far? He asked. Choha told him that in normal stages you can usually run away if you are losing, but here, the monsters are crazy aggressive and show up in massive swarms. While checking the area, Choa broke down the real danger. She said if an awakened person lets their guard down for even a second, they will get swarmed by locusts. If you get caught, they will eat you alive, right down to the marrow of your bones. Itsuki just smirked at the news. If there are really that many monsters waiting inside, then it is perfect, he said. Choa stared at him like he was crazy. You in a hurry to die? She asked. He just shrugged and said he was not thirsty enough to get eaten by insects. A second later, he walked right into the glowing gate. Choa watched him go, thinking he looked way too confident for his own good. She reminded herself he chose this stage on his own, and she had already given him all the advice she could. With a quiet sigh, she just accepted it. If he dies in there, that is on him. But suddenly, Choa froze as total panic hit her face. What should I even do? She thought. She realized she forgot one major detail. Those locusts inside will keep spawning forever unless someone takes down the boss. Panicking, she decided she had to go in and warn him, but then she heard a sound behind her. As she turned around, her face went totally stiff. A stranger was standing right behind her. A tall guy in a hat with glowing red eyes was just chilling there with a massive hound. The guy gave her a cold smile and said he was looking for someone. Meanwhile, inside the stage, Itsuki stepped through a trashed field. Dirt and smashed crops were everywhere. Total mess, he muttered, looking around. Then he clapped his hands and gave a very confident grin. He yelled out to the invisible swarm, telling the pests to wake up. He was here to wipe them all out. A lone scarecrow stood in the wasteland while bugs swarmed around it. Itsuki scanned the area and saw the enemy levels were actually pretty low. Since they actually fit the requirements for Lotus Burst, this would be easy. More info windows popped up. Evil Locust 2231, Insect Tribe, Level 1. Gift, none. Status, hidden. There were also some Level 2 evil locusts in the mix. Itsuki looked up as a giant locust cloud blocked the sun. That is a ton of bugs, he said. But instead of panicking, he noted this actually worked in his favor. Fire flared up as he gathered a glowing lotus in his palms. The more they huddle up, the less work I have to do, he explained. Once they hit the range of Lotus Burst, he would crush them all. The earth shook as a bug vortex swirled around him. When the timing was finally perfect, he yelled one word now. A massive red explosion lit up the sky as the system confirmed that Lotus Burst was active. A giant blast rocked the area. Immediately after, notifications started flooding in. Every single one said another evil locust was killed by his Lotus Burst skill, boosting user skill ranges by 1%. More alerts followed as Level 1 and Level 2 bugs got wiped out instantly. Once the smoke drifted away, Itsuki was just standing there on the fried ground. Sparks fell around him while burnt bug bodies littered the area. Another alert popped up, confirming a level 2 kill and giving him another 1% range boost. New windows opened up, explaining how Lotus Burst works. The active effect burns magic to deal massive explosive damage within a 10.5 meter range. Power scales with magic spent. The passive says every time he kills a level 1 creature or higher, all skill ranges grow by 1%. Itsuki checked the numbers and made a quick remark. He cleared 110 enemies, meaning a 10% boost. Lotus Burst's range had now jumped up to a solid 10.5 meters. Not bad at all. Against these low-level monsters, using 10% magic to push 10% power should be more than enough for him. Counting his remaining mana and regen speed, he could probably fire off about 10 more shots. If he gets 100 kills per shot, he hits a 1000% range boost. His current magic 252 out of 280. He stared at the thing, muttering that life would be way easier without these annoying stage cooldowns. Then, Itsuki froze. He looked down at his bracelet with a face full of pure confusion. The usual challenge success pop-up was missing. He whispered to himself that something felt seriously off about this. As he stood there scowling, a wild thought hit him. Maybe the cause was something totally unexpected. Right then, a system window flashed into existence. It flagged a C-rank skill called Mother's Will. Mimesis was officially active, but the analysis was crawling at only 1%. Itsuki snapped his head up instantly. One of those nasty locusts actually survived. Dust and debris whipped around him while even more bugs swarmed the sky. He spun around, watching the swarm regroup. Was Mother's Will a boss skill? He didn't have time to think before a few locusts lunged straight for him. He leaped back, blocking the hits with his crystal arm guards. He hated to admit it, but he had totally let his guard down. He really thought there was no boss here. Narrowing his eyes, he thought out loud. At least he could still buff his skill range by spamming another Lotus Burst. The real problem was that he had zero clue where the boss was hiding. Glowing energy shaped like a lotus bloomed from his palms as he triggered the skill. His face hardened with pure grit. He decided to wipe out the small fries first and smoke that hidden boss out of hiding. A massive explosion ripped through the air. The ground trembled as countless evil locusts were shredded by the blast. System alerts started piling up fast. Every alert showed a level 1 or 2 locust biting the dust from his Lotus Burst. Each kill was boosting all his skill ranges by 1%. The notifications kept stacking until his total experience hit 220%. Boom! Lotus Burst just leveled up. The update explained that Lotus Burst Level 2 now used magic for explosive damage across a 16-meter diameter. Its power scaled with the mana used. Itsuki looked at the smoking wreck of a battlefield and noted the 16-meter range. This new range was honestly insane, but even after dusting 10 more enemies, the boss was still a no-show. Deep underground in a dark, creepy nest, a bunch of insect monsters started crawling around. Their wings buzzed as they crowded around a glowing cluster hidden in the shadows. As locusts crawled out from the cracks in the ground, a screen popped up showing the analysis had reached 27%. He looked ahead, annoyed that they were respawning. Another screen showed his magic was at 232 out of 280. He realized he could only use Lotus Burst 9 more times. Fire flared around his hand as he stepped forward, vowing to crush every single one of these pests. He swung his arms through the flames and yelled that he was going to sweep them all away. A fiery blast tore across the field. More notifications confirmed that level 1 locusts were getting wrecked by Lotus Burst, increasing all his skill ranges by another 1%. More screens stacked up without stopping, flashing the exact same message over and over again. A blinding explosion shredded the ground as Lotus Burst triggered once more, throwing debris everywhere. Bright light flashed across the area as the blue system window confirmed the kill. Another huge blast followed immediately, drowning the area in yellow flames and flying rocks. The screen just kept repeating the skill name, Lotus Burst. A new panel popped up with an updated skill description. It said Lotus Burst Level 2 now dealt explosive damage within a 54.5 meter diameter. Power was tied to magic use. Below that, another panel explained his passive effect. Every time the skill killed a level 1 creature or higher, his ranges went up by 1%, now hitting a massive 990%. Itsuki ran forward through the burning chaos, sweat dripping down his face. He took a quick look at the glowing system screen. He noted that he had wiped out 9 big groups and boosted his range by 990%, but he only had enough magic left for one more shot. He wondered why these monsters just kept coming. His magic reserve dropped to 5,280. He looked up as the sky turned black with insects. He muttered in frustration that there was no end to this swarm. It was getting thicker overhead, but even after all that carnage, there was still no boss in sight. He scowled, noting the boss was still a total ghost. He thought about pulling back for a bit and returning once the analysis was finally finished. But while he was weighing his options, the endless swarm started closing in. Itsuki narrowed his eyes as a new realization suddenly hit him. He snapped that running away was for third-rate losers. Fire began pooling in his hand, and flames wrapped tightly around his arm. With fire in his eyes, he declared that no matter how many beasts appeared, he would crush every last one. A massive explosion bloomed like a fiery lotus, sending shockwaves everywhere. As the smoke cleared, Itsuki steadied his stance and muttered that with this final attack, it should be over. But before he could even finish, a billion more bugs filled the sky. They completely surrounded him, and he realized with total frustration that their numbers hadn't dropped at all. A glowing system screen popped up, showing the analysis was now at 91%. Itsuki's eyes widened as he tried to figure out what was going on. He wondered what the deal was. Every single monster that had spawned since that first kill was still only a level 1. Their bodies were tiny, like they had just hatched. As he connected the dots, the truth hit him hard. The boss had the ability to reproduce infinitely. A massive golden bug, the queen locust, was crouching in the dark while glowing eggs shot from its body. The system identified it as Queen Locust Sumbro 379, Insect Tribe, Level 13, Gift Grade 1. It lays massive amounts of those nasty evil locust eggs. Skill, Mother's Will. Itsuki looked up, sweat rolling down his face. If this queen could reproduce forever, then killing the small fries was a total waste of time. The only way out was to kill the boss itself. His magic was almost tapped out, but the analysis bar was still climbing steadily in front of him. 98%. He gritted his teeth as the bar finished. A blue sphere pulsed out. Analysis 100% complete. A notification popped up. Mother's Will. Analysis done. New skill unlocked. Magic Detection Level 1. Another window appeared. Magic Detection Level 1 active effect. When toggled, it drains mana to track magic within 100 meters. Passive effect. Range boosted to 1100 meters thanks to the Lotus Burst buff. There is more. Every enemy pinged restores 10% of his magic. Itsuki's jaw dropped as he scrolled through the stats. A radar skill covering over 1,000 meters, plus free mana for every baddie caught in the net. He smirked. This passive was a total cheat code for this level. Farming these small fries was about to pay off. He tilted his head, eyes glowing with pure confidence. Leaving the queen for later while he wiped out the rest of the mob seemed like a solid plan. He looked down, lost in thought. He realized he was keeping Chuha waiting, but he decided to finish wrecking this whole stage before going back. A blue window flashed in his face, confirming he had officially unlocked Magic Detection Level 1. Every stat jumped by 10 points, his debuffs vanished, and every scratch was healed instantly. The update screen flickered. Attack shot from 280 to 290. Agility climbed from 2 to 290. Defense did the same. His magic stat hit 290, meaning his total jumped from 120 to 1160. Itsuki touched his forehead as energy swirled around him. He triggered the new skill, focusing hard. He scanned for the boss with his new radar. Massive energy ripples pulsed from his body, spreading like water rings across the map. The waves traveled for miles, lighting up every dark corner. Down in the depths, the huge golden bug boss looked up, its yellow eyes glowing as the pulse hit. Itsuki's gaze sharpened. A second later, he caught a signal in the distance. He raised 2 fingers, pointing them forward with a cocky grin on his face. Dark, Swirling energy gathered at his fingertips, warping the very air. He was about to drop his clear orb skill. Through the noise, his voice rang out. He told the beast that using its spawn as shields was completely useless. The clear orb glowed, stacking with Lotus Burst's power. A blinding lotus light exploded outward, turning the battlefield bright as day. He knew that with the Lotus Burst passive and the orb's new range, this shot was definitely going to land. A system window confirmed the clear orb's range was now 120 meters. Suddenly, the glowing orb tore across the field like a bolt of purple lightning. The air cracked as the queen locust flinched in shock, throwing her golden wings wide to try and bolt. But Itsuki was already there, coated in crackling blue crystals. His new form loomed like a nightmare, lightning surging as he hovered over the queen. He looked at her and whispered, "Checkmate." He slammed his attack home, crushing her with raw power and shredding the queen to bits. The entire insect swamp went into a frenzy. Without their queen, the swarm was in total chaos. Itsuki turned toward the mess with cold, dead eyes. Flames burst from his crystal arm. He promised to send these bugs to meet their maker immediately. One lotus burst later, they all hit the dirt. Itsuki stood in the dust, surveying the carnage. His skill ranges had jumped by 1210%. Lotus Burst's explosion radius now hit 65 meters, 0.5 meters, while the clear orb's range had stretched out to 131 meters. A window detailed Lotus Burst Level 2. The active skill burns mana to deal massive explosive damage in a 65.5 meter zone. The power scales directly with mana consumption. The passive effect adds a 1% range boost for every level 1 kill. His total bonus had hit 121%, 0.10%. Another alert appeared, showing the orb's flight distance had reached 131 meters. Itsuki checked the results and smiled. Not a bad haul. He sat on the ground, holding a green leaf as the dust settled around him. He figured once the cooldown reset, he would dive back in and pump that Lotus Burst passive up to 5 digits. As he headed for the dungeon exit, a new notification appeared. New record achieved. Clear time, 17 minutes and 7 seconds. Standing in front of the glowing blue portal, Itsuki checked the timer. 17 minutes. He figured Chuha was probably getting pretty worried about him. He pictured her waiting. She would probably act all cold when he got back, but he knew she was actually a total sweetheart. Her inability to be honest about her feelings was actually pretty cute. Stepping out of the portal through a swirl of blue energy, he waved and said he was back. Sorry for the wait. Then his eyes widened in total shock. Right there, Choa was injured, with blood on her lips. A guy with glowing red eyes held her by the collar. He looked down at Itsuki and spoke like ice. He said that soloing a stage and walking out fine only meant one thing. Itsuki was the guy Reiji was hunting. Charles, in the wide-brimmed hat, looked at Itsuki and spoke in a calm, chilling voice. He said the timing was perfect. He had been trying to squeeze info about Itsuki out of his captive, Choha, but even after all this, she wouldn't talk. Charles admitted Choha had more backbone than most guys. Itsuki stepped forward, his voice turning cold. He told Charles to take his filthy hands off of her right now. He warned that if Charles did not let go, he would leave him half dead. Charles just threw his head back and laughed. He mocked Itsuki, telling him not to get cocky since he was just a level 0 rookie. Suddenly, blue electricity exploded from Itsuki's body as he rocketed forward at insane speed. Red eyes blazing, he lunged straight for Charles. Charles totally lost it, screaming about the speed before calling for death. Before Itsuki could strike, this massive black beast dived in the way. Itsuki's lightning punch clobbered the beast instead, sending sparks flying as the monster roared. Right as Death blocked his path, a glowing system notification popped up in front of Itsuki. It announced a B-rank Shikigami named Deathhound. Another window showed over Mimesis had kicked in, starting its analysis at 1%. Seeing the alert, Itsuki finally got it. This dog was a Shikigami, meaning that guy in the hat was the master. The analysis hit 12%. Charles narrowed his eyes, tracking every single one of Itsuki's fast moves. He saw zero wasted effort, just insane speed. Now he understood why Oga got clapped. Oga probably didn't even have time to blink before it was game over. But Charles wasn't sweating. He smirked, bragging he had death and a hostage. Behind him, Choa was barely hanging on. Itsuki shouted her name, looking worried. Standing firm, he pinned Death's snout with one hand but let his guard down for a second. Death broke free with a roar, showing its teeth as it lunged. Those glowing red eyes were locked onto him. Charles just smirked. He said Death's bite could crush anyone with low defense. At best, Itsuki was about to lose an entire arm, but a second later, Charles's face just froze. His eyes went wide as he stared at the scene ahead. Black spikes suddenly sprouted from Itsuki's body, stopping the beast's bite cold. Instantly, Itsuki targeted Death with his Lotus Orb skill. With a massive explosion of energy, the Lotus Orb blasted from Itsuki's hand and hit Death's head. It shredded the skull and ripped out the core, killing it instantly. A blue window popped up, showing the analysis jumping. It was already at 77%. Itsuki stood over the dead hound, totally chill. He said, without a Shikigami, a user was basically a sitting duck. Charles stared. He wondered if this rookie didn't know Shikigami could respawn. Plus, with a B-rank skill, Death's respawn timer was way faster than normal. A heartbeat later, Death was back and lunging at Itsuki's back. Charles mocked him, saying that being careless would turn him into dog food. The beast lunged, but Itsuki immediately flared his magic detection skill. Itsuki sensed the sneak attack and countered in a flash. He told himself that keeping magic detection active the whole time was definitely the right move. The analysis bar kept climbing. 89, 91. Itsuki glanced at Charles holding Chua, noting the scan was almost done. He hoped he could finish without triggering that flashy blue lotus visual. Progress hit 95%. Watching Itsuki kick the beast without even looking, Charles started to sweat bullets. He realized this opponent was stronger and faster than Death and had detection skills. He panicked, knowing a surprise attack was never going to work. Charles yanked Chua in front as a shield, grabbing her throat. He screamed that if Itsuki tried anything else, the girl was finished. Itsuki watched silently. He wanted to finish the scan without showing the lotus, but this situation was getting really messy. Just then, a bright system screen appeared. Analysis 100% complete. Another window flashed right after. Death Eater analysis finished. Shikigami Eater acquired. The skill said that by touching a Shikigami, he could basically steal ownership of it. Itsuki checked the results. He could even keep the blue lotus from appearing since the scan finished on the down low. More alerts popped up. Shikigami Eater level 2. All his stats just jumped by 20 points. Then a notice explained that since Mimesis was incomplete, the heal and debuff clear failed. Itsuki's new stats flickered on screen. His main stats hit 310, and his total points jumped from 1060 to 1240. Seeing the alert, Itsuki knew skipping the blue lotus cost him his full recovery. No free health refill today. But he'd already recovered once before. He could still go at almost full power even without the extra boost. Right then, Death lunged again, jaws wide open and roaring at Itsuki. In that moment, Itsuki had a pretty big realization. He knew this new skill let him hijack other people's summons. He looked at the energy in his hands, totally calm. He figured if that was the case, he knew exactly what to do. Blue energy surged as he raised his hand. Determined, he slammed his hand onto Death's head, deciding to take Charles' dog. Blue petals exploded like a storm, wrapping the beast's body and pulling it away. A second later, Itsuki blurred forward with insane speed and kicked Death, blasting it across the field. Death went flying and crashed behind Charles. Charles panicked, staring at the mess and calling his dog a useless mutt. He screamed, asking why he even wasted all that XP on the beast. He tightened his grip on Chua, absolutely fuming. He threatened to snap her neck if Itsuki resisted. Chua, barely awake, told Itsuki not to worry about her and just fight. Itsuki slowly put both hands up in surrender. He told Charles to calm down and not touch her. Charles smirked like a villain. He said if Itsuki had been a good boy, Chua wouldn't be suffering like this. Itsuki glared, asking why they were even after him. He didn't remember doing anything. Charles just sneered, thinking he was fishing for info. He basically told him it didn't matter because Itsuki was meeting the boss soon anyway. He warned Itsuki that Reiji was ticked off about him trespassing in District 4. Then he introduced himself as Charles the Hound, the guy sent by Reiji to drag Itsuki in. Hearing that name again, Itsuki muttered that he needed to find Kinoshita and settle this personally. Charles smirked, promising Itsuki would meet him all right, but only as a bloody mess. He threatened to have death chew off his legs next and warned him not to use that ice magic if he wanted Choha to live. Charles pointed a finger and gave the order, telling Death to rip both of Itsuki's legs off. Itsuki just narrowed his eyes, fueled by cold resolve instead of fear. He told the beast to prove it was actually worthy of being his Shikigami. Suddenly, Death lunged not at Itsuki, but straight at Charles, sinking its fangs into its own former master. Seizing the moment, Itsuki blurred across the field, appearing behind Choha. Blue sparks crackled as he caught her gently, pulling her away from the chaos. Charles let out a horrified scream. Drenched in sweat, he shrieked at the beast, demanding to know why it was attacking him. The Shikigami stood by Itsuki with glowing red eyes. It growled as Itsuki told the beast it did a good job. Then he focused on the wounded Choha in his arms. Surrounded by a blue aura, he spoke with ice in his voice. He promised to pay back Choha's pain 100 times over. He warned Charles that he would die screaming for ever touching them. Terrified, Charles stumbled back and hit the dirt. He begged for mercy, whining that he was just following Reiji's orders. His voice cracked as he suggested a deal he would help Itsuki lure Reiji out into the open. Itsuki's eyes flared red. He looked down at the coward and admitted it was a solid plan. Charles's face shifted instantly. A nasty grin spread across his face as he spotted an opening. He hurled a blade at Itsuki and screamed for him to die. The attack lunged forward like a flash of light, but Itsuki calmly sidestepped the blade. He just watched the weapon whistle past with narrowed eyes. He muttered that he was more than enough to take down Reiji alone. Beside him, Death stood ready, eyes burning red for blood. Itsuki ordered Death to give Charles a taste of the pain Choha endured. The beast bared its massive fangs, and Charles froze, paralyzed by pure terror. Sweat poured down his face as he scrambled to apologize. He claimed his hand just slipped and that he was really sorry. He begged for one last shot, trembling. But Itsuki didn't blink. Holding Choha tight, he looked at the guy and told the beast it was dinner time. Death charged forward, eyes glowing and fangs bared, straight for the man. Charles lost it, stumbling backward in a total panic. Tears streaming, he screamed at the beast, asking if it forgot who the boss was. He yelled about all the food he'd given it, his voice shaking with every word. But Death just unhinged its jaws and lunged, finishing Charles off for good. A short distance away, Itsuki stood tall, still holding the injured Choha in his arms. He'd felt someone watching. Itsuki called out to the shadow, telling them he knew they'd been following him since he left the stage. Itsuki turned and told the voyeur to stop hiding and just show their face. The tall grass nearby rustled as someone finally moved, stepping out into the light. A blond guy in a hood stepped out, scratching his head with a super awkward smile on his face. He admitted they'd caught him. Itsuki held the injured Choha close as a dark, heavy energy started pulsing behind him. With glowing eyes, he asked if the blonde was with Charles. The guy freaked out, waving his hands and swearing he wasn't an enemy. He begged Itsuki to just listen. Itsuki gave him a cold look and said fine. He had no time for games. Behind them, Death was busy tearing into Charles's remains. Itsuki told the beast to follow him once it finished its meal. The blond guy just stared, shocked that such a monster actually obeyed Itsuki. He realized Itsuki might be the help he needed. He hurried over, introduced himself as Iberia, and asked for Itsuki's name. Hyped up, he said the fight was wild, even the scary parts. Then he guessed that Itsuki was the mystery guy who took down Takaru. Itsuki answered calmly. His name was Tenma Itsuki. He didn't let go of the unconscious Choha for a second. Iberia followed him nervously, wearing a shaky grin. He asked if Itsuki could help him out, offering cash, karma stones, or even high-level weapons as payment. Itsuki didn't say a word, just kept walking with Choha. Iberia watched him go, sweat beads forming on his forehead. He couldn't figure out the silence. His dad always said anyone would help for the right price. Now he wondered if that was a lie as a memory hit him. His father was hammering red-hot steel over a glowing forge. His dad explained that payment requires being smart. A cup of water is worth more than gold in a desert. To a vengeful man, offer a sword. To the hurt, offer medicine. He told him that would be enough payment for them. Back now, a light bulb went off for Iberia. He pumped his fist, finally getting it. He yelled out to Itsuki, pointing out that he was traveling on foot. He said moving fast was impossible with a casualty, and the hospital was miles away. He warned that if they kept walking that slow, the girl would definitely die. Iberia reached into his bag and pulled out a glowing scroll. He said he had healing items on him, but Itsuki just kept walking. Iberia panicked and shouted that he could save her. That made Itsuki stop. He turned and asked if he was for real. Iberia admitted he couldn't heal her fully yet, but he could definitely save her life. The two of them knelt down next to Choha. Itsuki asked if he could heal her through her clothes. Iberia told him his bandages were far from ordinary. Wrapping her in glowing bandages, he explained they were a rare karma tool made from Shadow Tribe cloth and Kodama bark. Itsuki squinted at Iberia and repeated the weird term, asking what a karma tool even was. Iberia gave him a look and figured the guy must be a total noob. He said it was basically zero surprise that Itsuki had no idea how this world works. Iberia broke it down. Modern weapons are trash against disaster beasts. Normal guns are basically paperweights in a real fight against those monsters, so forget about using them. Instead, crafters forge special gear called karma tools. They are made by mixing monument materials with actual monster parts to create something that actually hits. He said these tools are ranked in 4 tiers based on the crafter's skill and the loot used. The levels are normal, rare, epic, and unique. Iberia used a basic longsword as an example. Normal tools aren't much better than standard steel, but they have the power to actually hurt monsters and other warriors. That one was just an ordinary blade. The next level up was the Ocean Sword, a rare weapon that boosts speed and magic. Basically, rare karma tools give the owner a serious stat boost. The third tier was the Blood Sword, an epic item. It amps up attack and drinks blood to superheat the blade while cutting enemy healing in half. Epic tools also have their own special effects. Finally, Iberia dropped the big one. The ultimate rank for karma tools, the unique Holy Sword. It ramps up attack and speed, but the real cheat code is the infinite magic sealed inside. You basically never run out of mana during a fight. Iberia said the ultimate goal for any crafter is forging a unique karma tool. These legendary weapons have massive stat buffs and insane, one-of-a-kind powers. He admitted crafters aren't exactly combat gods, and there aren't many around. But since they make the gear, every awakened person treats them with massive respect. Hearing that, Itsuki asked if his old man was a crafter. Iberia smirked and said his dad wasn't just some random gear maker. He explained that most crafters go their whole lives without making a single unique tool even once. Only 10 crafters in the whole world have ever hit that level. Then he flexed, saying 3 of those 10 legendary tools were made by his father. That is why people call him the Crafter King of the North. Iberia was grinning ear to ear until he realized Itsuki wasn't even paying attention. He snapped, yelling at Itsuki to see if he was even listening. He ranted about how he was being nice and giving a lesson, while Itsuki was being a total jerk. He told him to stop ignoring him, but Itsuki didn't say a single word back. Instead, he was checking out the crossbow, noting it was the same model Charles used. Iberia was floored. Even after hearing about the Crafter King, Itsuki didn't look impressed at all. He muttered that any normal person would be sucking up to him by now. Itsuki kept eyeballing the weapon, thinking it could save him from using his clear orb and risking a reveal of his true powers. Iberia cut in, telling him the crossbow was a rare karma tool. Itsuki mentioned it was a bummer there were no arrows left. Iberia laughed it off, explaining that karma weapons don't need standard bolts. Any random ammo just turns into karma bolts automatically, so no stress. Suddenly, a screen popped up showing the name, Hunter's crossbow rare rank. Agility plus 50. Then the weapon just vanished. Itsuki looked shocked and asked where it went. Iberia told him that is just how karma tools work. Once you link with it, the gear stays stored away and pops out whenever you want to use it. Itsuki nodded, saying that was pretty handy. He thanked Iberia for the heal and told him to holler if he needed anything. But first, he had to go hunt down Kinoshita Reiji. Hearing that name, Iberia froze. He said he really hoped he had just misheard him. He said Itsuki must have massive guts to pick a fight with someone like Reiji in North District 4. Itsuki just stared him down and asked if he was going to tell him to quit too. Iberia told Itsuki that if Reiji was his target, then they were actually looking for the same guy. Itsuki asked if Iberia had beef with Reiji too. Iberia said not exactly, but he wanted to team up for the Salvation League National Tournament preliminaries coming up in 2 days. Hearing about the prelims, Itsuki remembered Chua saying only the top 10 make the cut. He had been grinding levels like crazy lately to prepare. He asked Iberia what this tournament had to do with Reiji. Iberia explained the prelims are split by continent, and for the North, the whole show is going down right in North District 4. Since Reiji is the son of the District 4 boss, he is obsessed with winning the main event. His brother is a high-tier savior, so failing to hit the top 10 would trash the family name. Now, Itsuki got why Reiji was hogging all the stages to level up fast. He looked at Iberia and asked why a guy like him would want to team up, since Itsuki was the one getting all the help. Iberia shouted back with total confidence, saying it was because Itsuki was a beast. He knew if they worked together, they would crush the qualifiers. Itsuki asked why he was so pressed about this specific year, since he was still young and had plenty of time left. Iberia tensed up and balled his fists at the question. He whispered that he had his reasons, as memories of his childhood started flooding back. Ever since he was a kid, he spent his days watching his father create karma tools. His eyes would light up every single time he watched. Every finished piece looked like a flawless work of art. His respect for his dad just kept growing, and he dreamed of becoming an awakened warrior himself one day. He pictured himself slaying monsters with the gear his father made. Then, just a month ago, his powers finally woke up. He was hyped and begged his dad for a weapon, but his father shut him down. He said only true saviors were allowed to carry his tools. Iberia wouldn't take no for an answer and kept begging. Finally, his dad made a deal. If he passes the tournament prelims this year, he gets his weapon. Iberia squeezed his fists hard. Eyes blazing, he swore he had to crush the tournament qualifiers this year no matter what the cost. Itsuki stayed chill. He said that with a legendary father, Iberia should have endless options. There was zero reason to team up with a total scrub. Iberia looked down and sighed. His old man saw that coming too. Before leaving, his dad told him to prove his worth and win on his own. His dad warned him, if he used his family name to carry strong partners, he would not get a single karma tool as a reward. Itsuki called his dad strict. Iberia explained that his intel showed most of the heavy hitters in the game were already on Kinoshita's payroll. The only ones left were lone wolves or pre-made squads. He was totally out of luck finding a decent teammate. Iberia grabbed Itsuki's hand, totally hyped. He said 2 days ago, news broke that someone wrecked Ogata Karo, one of the 4 pillars, and smashed the records. He hunted for info nonstop until he tracked down this spot. Itsuki pulled his hand away, then finally agreed to the team up. Joining up was fine, but he had to get Choa to the hospital first. Iberia was all in and shouted that he was coming along. Now they were a duo. Iberia insisted they needed a squad name and started mashing Tenma, Itsuki, and Iberia together for ideas. He threw out Iba 10, then hated it for sounding like a grocery store. He cycled through Ibiatsu, Ten Maria, and Tenebe, just rattling off names. Itsuki carried the knocked-out Choa, looking exhausted. He realized he was in deep trouble because this Iberia guy talked way more than Rikuru. Suddenly, he thought of Rikuru and Saya. Were they doing okay? Since they both awakened, he wondered if they were hitting the qualifiers too. Iberia lit up with a brilliant idea. Since both their names start with the letter I, they should be double I. Miles away, just as Itsuki thought of him, Rikuru suddenly sneezed in the middle of his training session. Saya glanced over and asked if he was coming down with a cold. Rikuru scratched his head, guessing someone was probably gossiping about him, maybe Itsuki. Saya looked down and softly asked how much time had actually passed since the attack incident. She never thought they would be apart this long. She wondered if Itsuki was even okay. Rikuru gave her a really weird look. He told her if she was that stressed, she should have visited him after the monsters were dead. Saya turned bright red and looked down. Suddenly, she shoved her hands forward, blasting him with water. Rikuru went flying backward, screaming in total shock as he hit the ground. Rikuru yelled that a surprise attack was cheating. Saya snapped back that it was training, and he was the one who left an opening. Suddenly, their teacher appeared. The two jumped to attention. Rikuru yelled, "Sensei," while their teacher scolded them, reminding them the national tournament qualifiers kick off the day after tomorrow. He asked if they really had time to mess around. Saya's eyes sparkled. She was pumped to fight other awakened people since training with Rikuru was getting boring. A holographic screen popped up next to her, showing her official stats as an awakened water elementalist. Rikuru checked his own status window too. He said he had never visited North District 4, but heard it was a wealthy area. He really wanted to see it himself. Somewhere else, Kinoshita popped open a metal case containing 3 jagged crystal stones. He stared at the crystals and scowled, clearly losing his patience. He muttered that the hound was late, which was weird for him. His bodyguard, standing right behind him, wondered if something had gone sideways with the plan. Kinoshita's face went dark. He growled that those useless losers had failed him one more time. His glasses flashed red as a notification popped up. Karma stone used, experience points gained. His bodyguard asked if they should send out a search party. Frustrated, Kinoshita said to forget that guy. The national qualifiers were the only priority. He muttered that if he failed, his dad would lock him in solitary again. Then he checked on the mission he gave his bodyguard. The man reported back with the final results. Out of 3,113 fighters in the north, he flipped 87 of them. All were level 5+, exactly like he ordered. Kinoshita smirked and told his lackey he did good, he was the only one he could trust. Then, he grabbed another glowing stone from the case. His bodyguard warned him it was the final karma stone. Blinding light exploded as Kinoshita crushed it. He absorbed the experience, leveled up, and raw lightning began arching off his body. He said this was plenty. He was going to use this power to absolutely crush all those commoners. A status screen popped up, showing Kinoshita Reiji at level 12. Job, Lightning Elementalist. Gift grade, 2. Attack, 135. Defense 130, Agility 168, Magic 170, total 603. Hours later, a blue teleportation beam hit the hospital as Itsuki stood ready. He hung his head and apologized to his teacher. He felt like a failure for letting Choa get hurt so badly. Commander Nento stepped out of the portal and asked for Itsuki's plan. He offered to take out Kinoshita personally if Itsuki wanted him gone. Itsuki looked up and stood his ground. He told his teacher to leave Kinoshita to him. Nento agreed but demanded a full report on everything later. Iberia watched from the side, totally stunned. He just realized the commander-in-chief of the entire North was actually Itsuki's mentor. Now it made sense why Itsuki didn't care about Iberia's famous dad. This Izumi Nento guy was a total mystery. Iberia even wondered if he could score an autograph. Inside the hospital, Itsuki broke down everything that went down. He explained that this was the real reason he was entering the Salvation League tournament qualifiers. His teacher understood and turned to Choa, asking how she was feeling. Choa just looked up and smiled softly. She said Tamacho treated her, so she was back to 100%. A green butterfly hovered nearby. She mentioned Iberia's rare tool really helped her heal up. Izumi Nento looked at Iberia, shocked. He said since the kid had the Kodama bandage made by Aiden, he had to be Aiden's own son. Iberia froze. It hit him like a brick. Commander Nento didn't just know about karma tools, he actually recognized his old man. He had to keep it together and act like the legendary Crafter King's firstborn son. He puffed out his chest and bragged to the crowd that he was Aiden's father. Total silence. Then Itsuki leaned in and told him he had it totally backward. Iberia immediately facepalmed, trying to hide his burning cheeks. He mumbled an apology, admitting that Aiden was actually his father, not the other way around. Commander Nento cleared his throat to kill the awkward vibe. He thanked Iberia for keeping his daughter safe during that mess. He mentioned visiting Aiden with Tenma once the prelims wrapped up. He then barked at Itsuki and Iberia to go get ready and hit the road. He promised he and Chuha would be there tomorrow. Iberia pumped his fist, telling the commander not to sweat it because they were going to crush these prelims. Next to him, Itsuki just gave a quiet, cool nod. After they left, Choa mentioned her dad seemed to really like Tenma. She remembered how he used to drag her along to every single meeting with Jin. Nento then dropped a bombshell due to childhood trauma. Itsuki had these crazy, self-destructive impulses that triggered whenever disaster beasts appeared. But those dark urges only chilled out when he had someone close by to protect. He told Choha straight up that was the only reason he kept her by Itsuki's side. Choha realized the truth. Her dad wanted her to be Itsuki's friend, his anchor, and his one weakness. She whispered to herself, wondering if she was really the girl Tenma wanted to save. While she was spaced out, the commander stood up and dropped another truth bomb. The attack at Itsuki's school was a setup, not some random accident. Chua's jaw dropped in absolute shock. Nento added that more traitors were teaming up with the beasts, and similar hits on top commanders were happening everywhere. He stared out the window, looking like a dark shadow against the night. He muttered that humanity's future looked like a total blackout. Then he whispered that Itsuki would be the one to light it up and become a beacon of hope for everyone. Cut to the national tournament prelims in North District 4. This massive circular arena was just sitting there in the middle of a total wasteland. The place was packed. Itsuki scanned the arena and noted there were way more people than he expected. Iberia explained that once the word got out about Commander Nento watching, everyone signed up. The total number of contestants jumped from 3,000 to nearly 5,000. Reiji stood there fuming. He growled that Nento had just thrown a massive wrench in his plans by adding so many random variables. His lackey tried to chill him out, saying the new guys were just last-minute losers who didn't even have teams. Reiji still had the numbers. He told his boss the recruits were all wearing red ribbons on their right arms so they could spot their allies in the chaos. Across the arena, Rakuru's squad spotted the ribbons. He asked if red ribbons were the new hot fashion trend and if they should get some too. Seiya figured since the commander was coming, Itsuki might actually show up. Then the tournament host, Shinchihara Soryu, stepped up to the mic to address the massive crowd. He shouted for everyone to listen up so he could break down the rules for the prelims. The venue was split into two zones, an external and an internal area. For the first stage, everyone would start from 4 different directions in that external zone. A giant map popped up on the screen, showing the outer ring and the inner circle marked as the internal area. Soryu explained the first challenge was a pure foot race. Everyone needed to bust their humps and reach that internal area as fast as humanly possible. Once you hit the inner zone, your rank would lock into your bracelet. Only the first 50 people to make it would move on to the next round. A hologram of the bracelet lit up, showing exactly where the rank would appear. The crowd started buzzing immediately. Rakuru checked his arm and said the bracelet was actually pretty high-tech. Beside him, Sia worried that cutting thousands of people in one round was totally brutal. Soryu added that everyone could carry 2 karma tools. You were free to team up with whoever, and honestly, any method was fair game to get the win. Results were the only thing that mattered. Iberia nudged Itsuki, pointing ahead like a kid in a candy store, telling him to check it out. He was pointing right at Reiji's team. As the host announced the first stage would end with the top rankings, Iberia singled out Reiji Kinoshita standing in the middle of a massive group and told Itsuki that was their target. Meanwhile, Kinoshita was barking orders at his recruits to block anyone trying to get ahead of him. Iberia figured the guys around Kinoshita were all on the payroll. He suggested they should just sprint for the finish line before things got too messy. He wanted to jump Kinoshita once the guy let his guard down inside the arena. But before he could finish, Iberia just froze. He watched Itsuki start walking straight toward Kinoshita's group. Panicked, Iberia asked if he'd even heard a word he said. One of Reiji's goons spotted Itsuki and asked who the heck he was. Another yelled to watch out because he didn't have a ribbon. Suddenly, the host's voice boomed from above, announcing that the first stage was officially starting right now. The host smiled at the kids, saying it was great to see so many wanting to join the Salvation League. But then a voice barked that numbers don't mean anything without quality. A guy with black hair stepped up. He grumbled that back in his day, plenty of rookies were already above level 15. This guy was an instructor too. A screen popped up with Akira Hayden's info, though most of it was blacked out. Soryu corrected him, saying only 2 guys hit that level in Hayden's year. Akira was level 18, and his buddy Tewajin was all the way at 21. Hayden remembered the past and sighed. He muttered that things were boring now without rookies like Tewa around. He hoped a similar beast was in this crew, but Instructor Soryu just shook his head, saying legends like that don't just spawn every day. Instructor Hayden stepped up, asking Commander Nento about that crazy rumor. Word is a northern student crushed a level 8 skeleton right after awakening and became the commander's top apprentice. Soryu's eyes nearly popped out as he asked if it was legit. He called it insane to solo level 8 monsters right out of the gate. Commander Nento, wreathed in dark fire, simply nodded it was all true. Hayden asked if the mystery student was here right now. Soryu figured if this was Izumi's second-star student after Tewajin, they had to be some kind of god-tier prodigy. Soryu scanned the roster, trying to figure out which rookie was the hidden powerhouse. The screen flashed the first name, Horino Rikuru, a level 10 metal elementalist. Soryu saw Rikuru only had a grade 2 gift, hardly legendary material. Next up was Kisaragi Saya, a level 11 water elementalist rocking a grade 1 special ability. Since she was strictly support, he figured she wasn't the secret weapon either. Then Hanyukana popped up a wood elementalist at a crazy level 16. He bet she was the one, but Nento just sat there stone-faced and didn't say a word. Soryu realized he was swinging and missing, even though Hanyu was clearly the highest level in the entire arena. Suddenly, Instructor Hayden pointed out a weird detail among the new recruits. Some kid was actually level 0. Soryu shrugged it off, remarking that every year some random amateur joins the big competition just out of pure curiosity. They usually get wrecked and quit immediately. Meanwhile, Kinoshita's squad started howling with laughter as he pointed at Itsuki, yelling that a level 0 actually showed up. The whole crew mocked Itsuki, laughing and asking if he'd lost his way. Itsuki just stepped forward and wordlessly raised his hand, flashing Charles's mechanical glove. Kinoshita froze instantly. He started stuttering, knowing exactly who that high-tech gear belonged to. Pure terror washed over him as he demanded to know who Itsuki really was. Itsuki stared him down, asking if he was the one who had been hunting for him. Kinoshita went ballistic. He refused to believe it, screaming that a level 0 scrub could never take down Oga. He swore Itsuki was just a plant sent to mess with his head. Then he pointed and barked at his squad to finish him. His goons smirked and stepped up, claiming they'd handle this and make Itsuki regret ever crossing them. While his boys boxed Itsuki in, Kinoshita blasted toward the center in a flash of purple lightning, shouting he had no time for level 0 trash. With Kinoshita gone, the remaining thugs surrounded Itsuki, closing in for the kill. Up in the tower, Hayden watched the mismatch unfold. 3 level 6s and 2 level 7s? To him, the results were already a foregone conclusion. He figured if Itsuki begged for his life now, he might live. Down below, Iberia was sweating, frantically crunching the numbers. He could maybe take one guy, but even with Itsuki's power, fighting 4 enemies at once seemed like a suicide mission. He had no choice but to use that move. He stepped forward, reaching for the gear at his side, when one of the goons, a red-haired guy, smirked and looked Itsuki up and down. He laughed, saying he expected a challenge, but their first fight was just some level 0 garbage. Itsuki lowered his head, eyes shadowed, and coldly told the guy to move. The redhead's eyes went wide. He definitely wasn't expecting this nobody to talk back so bluntly. He froze for a second before howling with laughter. He mocked Itsuki's big talk, but up above, Instructor Hayden actually smirked when he heard the kid. He liked the kid's guts and figured he'd jump in to save Itsuki's neck once things turned ugly. The red-haired thug leaned in with a sick grin, telling Itsuki he was gonna crack his skull open and see what's inside. Itsuki didn't say a word. Instead, Itsuki exploded. His fist slammed into the redhead's face with insane force, sending blood and teeth flying everywhere. As the guy crumpled to the ground screaming, Itsuki just coldly repeated that he already told him to move. Haiden was stunned. That guy was 7 levels higher, yet Itsuki just ended him. He couldn't believe a level 0 had just one-shotted a level 7 veteran. The other fighters were floored. One guy yelled that Honda was a level 7 and couldn't wrap his head around how a rookie won. Another told him to chill, claiming the kid just got lucky. Flames swirled around his hands as he growled that he'd personally burn this rookie to a crisp. A system window popped up. He was firing off a B-rank flamethrower skill at max power. A massive wall of fire blasted forward. Iberia gasped. The attack was so fast he couldn't even trigger his karma tool. The inferno roared across the entire battlefield. One goon joked that it was overkill for a level 0, but the attacker just shrugged, saying people die in these trials every day. If the rookie wanted someone to blame, he should blame himself for being cocky. Suddenly, another fighter pointed, yelling that something was wrong. As the smoke cleared, everyone stared at the center of the explosion. Itsuki had summoned a massive wall of black ice. Flames flickered around it. One guy just stared, yelling, asking what the hell this was. Behind the ice, Itsuki and Iberia were totally untouched. Iberia's jaw dropped. He screamed in shock that Itsuki had completely tanked a massive, wide-range fire attack. To him, it was exactly what he expected from a total beast. Itsuki didn't even acknowledge the praise. Instead, he just glanced at Iberia and told him to back off. A system window flashed. He'd blocked a B-rank fire skill with black wall, and his defense just spiked by 10%. Another screen showed his stats. Attack 310, Agility 310, Defense 341, Magic 310. Watching the numbers, Itsuki saw his defense jump by 31. He wondered if Black Wall's passive would trigger again on a repeat attack. He had to be sure. Meanwhile, one of Kinoshitas' goons pointed at him, looking totally stunned. The guy yelled, asking how Itsuki was still standing. Was that weird ice shield really his power? He scanned the area, confused. No water users were around, so where did the ice come from? Itsuki just stepped forward and held up a single finger. Itsuki's voice was ice cold. He told the fire user to bring that heat again, promising he wouldn't even block it. The guy lost it, his hands erupting in furious, roaring flames. "You mocking me?" he barked. "You better not try and back out of this deal now, kid." Itsuki just nodded. "I promised." The fire user fueled his flames even higher, screaming that he was ending this for good with his absolute strongest ultimate technique. A massive inferno gathered as he unleashed his B-rank flamethrower skill Overheat. Itsuki just stood there, totally chill while the firestorm swirled directly toward his face. He noticed the power jump, but honestly, it was still just a basic fire attribute move. A wave of fire roared forward, swallowing Itsuki and everything else. The fire user shoved his hands out, putting every ounce of desperate energy into it. A fighter behind him gasped, saying it was total overkill, but the fire user muttered that this blast was hitting like a level 8 threat. Sweat poured down his face as his mana drained instantly. Using his ultimate move on a level 0 felt like a total waste, but he yelled that the game ended right now. But a second later, the fire user stumbled back, eyes popping out of his head as cold sweat drenched his face. He stared at Itsuki standing there like nothing happened, screaming that it was impossible. On the other side, Itsuki just studied the black ice on his arm, whispering something. Turns out, when the same guy uses the same move twice, Blackwall's passive effect doesn't trigger again. He gave a small nod. Understood. He stepped forward while smoke rose from the cracked earth, declaring that the testing phase was officially over. Now, he was finishing this. The fire user started shaking. He couldn't wrap his head around his ultimate attack getting shut down that easily. Next to him, another fire user gripped his burning fists, claiming he had already spotted the ice skill's weakness. He charged right in with a flurry of blazing attacks. Flames exploded as he unleashed his B-rank fire barrage skill. Fireballs screamed toward Itsuki from every single angle. Surrounded by the swirling heat, he didn't even blink. He calmly asked if their only plan was to win with numbers. Black ice covered him as the system flashed. Black wall activated. A massive explosion rocked the entire arena, making the very ground tremble. The big fire user laughed, yelling that even with a strong skill, a level 0's tiny mana pool was basically useless. He figured if they drained Itsuki's magic until he couldn't make ice, they would win. But as the flames roared, a hand suddenly clamped onto his arm. The guy's eyes went wide. "What's going on?" he stammered. He was terrified to see that Itsuki had closed the distance in a literal heartbeat. Itsuki switched to hand-to-hand combat after realizing Black Wall only triggered once, despite all those fireballs hitting him. The big fire user rushed in, desperate to land a blow. He screamed that if Itsuki had speed, he had raw power. But Itsuki just stared him down, calmly asking if he was actually trying yet. Itsuki told the guy he looked pretty stressed, so he was going to make things way easier for him. He yanked the guy close, and before he could blink, Itsuki buried a foot right in his face. The impact was brutal, twisting his jaw as he stumbled back, completely broken and unable to move. Itsuki looked down and checked the system logs. His defense went up by 31, not 34, meaning the math was based on his original, unenhanced base stats. Just then, another screen popped up, confirming he had successfully blocked a B-rank fire skill. He gained a 10% defense boost. His total defense now hit 310, plus an extra 62 from Black Wall's effect. Turning away, Itsuki spotted two lightning users standing nearby. "Perfect targets," he whispered, deciding it was time to level up his Thunderbreaker passive effect next. The lightning guys panicked, seeing their buddies drop. They screamed that Itsuki's stats had to be fake before one of them yelled for them to get out of there. Itsuki looked back with freezing eyes and asked if they seriously thought they could run. The two lightning fighters let out a desperate, terrified roar. Electricity surged around them as they charged Itsuki, screaming that this wasn't fire and his little trick wasn't going to save him this time. Their combined skill, Silver Serpent, hit him in a massive surge of electricity. The system flashed. Itsuki had absorbed the C-rank attack using Thunderbreaker, boosting his agility by 5% twice in a row. Now he was faster than ever. His stats updated. Attack was now up to 310. Agility hit 341, defense 372, and magic 310. Total, 133 points. Instructor Heighton sat in the control room, absolutely rattled by the display. He realized Itsuki was taking down awakened fighters way higher level than him, and he was doing it without breaking a single sweat. Itsuki stood calmly over the unconscious bodies, lightning dancing around him. Watching him, Heighton trembled, wondering what kind of monster he was actually dealing with. Itsuki just analyzed the situation. He noted that Thunderbreaker worked just like Black Wall. It only triggered once when facing the same skill from the exact same opponent he was fighting. Iberia scanned the fallen goons, shocked that they were all totally knocked out. He knew it would be a tough fight, but never imagined Itsuki was this powerful. Suddenly, one of the trashed fire users groaned from the ground, asking what kind of ability Itsuki was even using. His voice trembled as he yelled that Itsuki definitely wasn't a level 0. When the guy asked who they really were, Iberia stepped forward with a smirk. Itsuki knew he was about to pull something. Iberia looked back with a massive grin. He proudly announced they were the Double Eye Duo, destined to be the strongest team on the northern continent. He told the Firestarter to remember them, but before he could even finish his big hero intro, Itsuki shut him down, saying they needed to quit yapping and hunt Kinoshita. Iberia threw a fit, yelling that the best part of his speech was coming up next. Off to the side, the fire guy muttered double I to himself in pure disbelief. Sounds pretty lame. Meanwhile, Kinoshita was hauling tail, trailing purple sparks and finally noticing the noise behind him. He figured that 0-level loser was getting smoked by now, but then he stopped dead. Something felt off. He pictured that crossbow Itsuki was carrying earlier. That was definitely the one Charles used to own. He needed to check that out later. Aside from the saviors, nobody up north should be able to touch Charles. While he was overthinking, a streak of fire blasted right past him. Another runner shot into the clouds. Kinoshita watched the fiery trail blur past his face, eyes wide with shock. This brown-haired kid was feeling himself, smirking as he pushed forward. He thought he was untouchable, leaving every other loser in the dust as he surged ahead. He was not some musclehead, he was built for speed. But before he could celebrate, a massive bolt of purple lightning slammed into his back. It ate him alive. The kid screamed as the juice fried his nerves. He hit the dirt hard, hacking up a cloud of smoke. Still dazed, he mumbled, wondering how anything could catch him when he was moving that fast. He could not wrap his head around who hit him. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over him, followed by a brutal kick that buried the kid's face into the pavement. It was Kinoshita, dripping with purple sparks. He looked down with ice in his eyes, basically saying that is what happens when you try to outrun him. He spun around and barked at his hired muscle, telling them to get their heads in the game. He reminded the crew to save their energy for the second stage. He ordered them to quit wasting time on the local garbage blocking the path. Commander Nento watched from the monitors and asked Soryu if that brat was the son of District 4's big shot, Kinoshita Genkyo. Soryu nodded, questioning what kind of spoiled upbringing made him act like that. Choha was fuming, but Soryu told them Kinoshita technically was not breaking any rules. Their hands were tied, so they could not jump in and stop him. Standing in a storm of flames and power, Kinoshita noted that since the others cleared the path, their stamina was still maxed out. He bragged that the second stage would be a breeze. He stared at the massive blue barrier ahead, knowing the inner circle was right within reach. He called the whole thing a total cakewalk. Suddenly, lightning tore through the sky, and a voice screamed Kinoshita's name out loud. Kinoshita went pale. A bead of sweat rolled down his face as he whipped his head around, totally rattled by someone calling him out. He demanded to know who said that. His squad went into a full panic, throwing their hands up and swearing it was not them. One guy stuttered that he was innocent. Another pointed back, saying the shout came from behind them. Suddenly, someone spotted the level 0 rookie. The crowd started whispering, parting like the Red Sea, to see who it was. Two shadows emerged from the distance, walking forward. Hearing it was a level 0, Kinoshita was stunned. No way it was them, but as the figures got closer, it was definitely Itsuki and Iberia. He recognized Itsuki instantly and yelled. Kinoshita stood frozen, eyes twitching as he realized his entire team had been wiped out. He gritted his teeth, thinking no level 0 and level 7 should have survived that many enemies. Then he smirked, telling himself Itsuki must have bribed them. Kinoshita leaned in with a death stare. He snarled, asking just how long this level 0 trash planned on following him around. The rain poured down on Itsuki and Iberia. Itsuki told Kinoshita he was staying right here until this whole thing was settled. Standing nearby, Iberia knew he only made it this far thanks to Itsuki. Every enemy was dropped in a heartbeat. Without him, Iberia would have been toast miles ago. Kinoshita just waved his hand dismissively. He said he was too busy to get his hands dirty, but he would find some playmates for them. Kinoshita's eyes flashed red. He ordered his men to take Itsuki out. The armed goons stepped forward, ready for blood. One guy mocked Itsuki for being a level 0 punk. Another said he had balls for yelling at the boss and promised to teach him some respect. Another laughed, promising to show them hell. Iberia's jaw dropped as he counted the crowd. Over 100 guys, he asked, voice shaking, what the plan was. Itsuki grabbed him by the hood and yanked him down, telling him to stay low. Iberia just stared, completely lost and confused. Blue lightning ripped through the mob before they could blink. Itsuki was a blur. He reached Kinoshita and snatched him from behind in a flash. Kinoshita's face froze as lightning coiled around his neck. Before anyone could move, Itsuki yanked him off the ground and slammed him down with pure power. Before Iberia could even process what was happening, Itsuki launched him toward the blue barrier like a projectile. Both Iberia and Kinoshita hit the dirt, looking totally bewildered. Itsuki stepped toward Kinoshita and said it seemed like he had not been clear enough. He corrected himself, telling Kinoshita and his goons that until this was over, absolutely nobody was going a single inch. That cold stare made the whole crowd freeze. Inside the inner zone, Saya collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. A screen showed she finished in 4th place. She complained that the guys with the red ribbons teamed up to sabotage and block them again. Beside her, Rikaru was flat on his back, catching his breath. His screen showed 5th place. He said if they had gone solo, they would have been finished. Rikaru looked up, stunned. He thought they were moving fast, but realized there were people out there way faster than them. This massive dude with a giant hammer was looming close. Name's Ubo Gale, rank 3. He clicked his tongue, clearly pissed off about 3rd place. At his feet, a cat-eared girl lazily stretched out. That's Akagami Shion, rank 2. A little kitten on her back let out a wide yawn. Shion complained about being hungry again right after eating. Typical. Then, they both glanced at the girl across the room. Hanukana, the number 1. She sat there totally chill, draped in a cloak. Rumor was she hit level 16 already. Watching them, Saya couldn't help but think about Itsuki. She knew he'd go solo, especially if someone blocked him. Suddenly, Rikuru pointed up, totally panicking. Someone was literally flying straight toward them. She looked up, eyes going wide at the sky. A man came crashing down, hitting the dirt hard. The system notification popped up, rank 6 has arrived. It was Iberia. He scrambled up, shouting Itsuki's name like his life depended on it. Saya and Rikuru both heard him loud and clear. Rikuru stared, stunned. Did that guy just say Itsuki? Saya looked over, nodding. Yeah, she heard the same thing. No mistake about it. Looking out into the arena, they spotted a lone figure standing in the pouring rain. Saya recognized the posture immediately. It was him. It was Itsuki. Cut to Itsuki. He stood his ground in the heavy rain, repeating his warning. Until they finally settled this, he wasn't letting a single soul leave. Back in the control room, Instructor Soria watched the drama. He noted that the rookie was just one step away from hitting the internal zone. Why was he so obsessed with Kinoshita Reiji? Meanwhile, Chuha watched Itsuki, her face practically screaming with worry. Sweat dripped down her face as she watched the scene unfold. Instructor Soria turned to Heighten and calmly told him to jump in if things got too dangerous for Itsuki. But Heighten's eyes went wide. He whispered the name Tenma Itsuki, still processing how fast the kid had moved just a few seconds ago. He realized he probably couldn't have pulled that off at that age. Out in the rain, Kinoshita was absolutely losing his mind with rage. He snapped, yelling that Itsuki kept getting in his way. He told the kid he better get ready for what was coming. He looked up, his voice dropping an octave. This isn't just a fight, he growled. This is going to be a total beatdown. A massive squad of fighters stepped out through the rain, eyes glowing red as they circled Itsuki. Kinoshita barked that this was a 100-on-1 beatdown. As the rain hit his face, Itsuki's eyes went cold. The exams didn't matter. His only priority now was getting payback for what happened to Choka. Across the field, Kinoshita's eyes turned bloodshot. He pointed forward and screamed for everyone to kill Itsuki right now. In a flash, dozens of fighters charged. Lightning and flames clashed everywhere as the entire battlefield descended into absolute chaos. One guy, literally dripping with fire, lunged ahead. He yelled for the others to back off because Itsuki's head belonged to him and him alone. Flames swirled around his arms as he launched a C-rank fire punch straight at Itsuki. But the kid didn't move. He just reached out and caught that fiery fist with his bare hand. The fire user froze, totally stunned. A second later, Itsuki landed a massive punch to his face, slamming him into the dirt with insane force. Done in one move, the ground cracked from the impact, leaving the other fighters standing there in shock. Someone yelled in disbelief that their buddy got smoked in just one hit. Another tried to stay cool, saying they had the numbers and there was no way a level 0 was beating them all today. More voices chimed in, telling the group to swarm him. Itsuki just stood there as they prepared to charge. He whispered the word perfect as a system window popped up. He'd successfully blocked a C-rank fire skill using Black Wall, boosting his defense by a solid 10%. Itsuki raised his clawed arm, fire swirling around him. He told them he was going to end this little joke right now. The The fire lotus in his hand glowed. System. Lotus burst activated. Flames wrapped around his entire body, spinning like a tornado. Then Itsuki clapped and a massive explosion erupted. The fire blasted out like a shockwave, knocking everyone off their feet and sending bodies flying across the arena. The dust cleared, and everyone stared at the scorched earth. Rikuru was shaking like a leaf as he looked at the wreckage. He stuttered, asking if that crazy attack was actually Itsuki. Behind him, Saya was speechless. Gaku rushed over, demanding to know what just went down. Shion just petted her cat, saying Michonne could swallow a blast that size easily. She acted like the massive explosion was basically nothing to worry about at all. Nearby, Kana sat quietly with her sword. Her face was totally unreadable as sparks drifted through the air. In the control room, Soria was losing it. He yelled that a level 0 just caused that explosion. He couldn't wrap his head around how a low rank could have that much raw power. What really broke his brain was Itsuki using skills that weren't even in his class. Instructor Heighten was just as stunned as everyone else. Chawa couldn't believe it. She had no idea Itsuki knew a massive area of effect skill. Thinking back to the wasteland, his insane confidence finally made perfect sense now. She watched him, wondering how many secret weapons he was hiding. Back on the field, Itsuki was looking totally unfazed. His suit was shredded, and fire glowed around his claws. He figured 30% of his power should probably be enough for this. Since these guys were humans, he told himself to take it easy. No killing. Kinoshita stared at the absolute carnage, smoke rising from the shattered and broken ground. He looked right at Kinoshita and told him he was the only one left. Kinoshita started sweating buckets, totally panicking now. He yelled that 100 people just got wiped out in a second. "Why are you only coming for me?" he screamed. Itsuki walked through the smoke. He threw Kinoshita's own words back at him. He was the one who started this mess and seriously hurt his friend. "Now," Itsuki said, "it's time to give that pain right back to you." Furious, Kinoshita let out a huge blast of purple lightning. He flexed as the heir to the big-shot Konoshita family, claiming every single stage around here was his personal playground. He bragged that those family karma stones let him hit levels normal people could only dream of without ever touching a monster. Raising a hand crackling with power, he screamed that he and Itsuki weren't even in the same league. He was definitely going to finish him off right there. Purple lightning surged as he dropped his B-rank skill, Purple Lightning Cannon. But right then, Itsuki's system finally kicked into gear. It caught the skill, and over Mimesis began the copy process. Analysis hit 1%. Lightning blasted toward Itsuki, but he just sidestepped it. He moved like a bolt of lightning, burying a fist deep into Kinoshita's gut. The guy hit the dirt, looking absolutely stunned. He couldn't wrap his head around a level 0 moving that fast. His ego vanished, replaced by pure terror. He was totally cooked. Panicking, he shrieked for help, calling for 40. A bald dude with glowing red eyes charged into the arena to save his hide. He knew he was breaking the rules, but he didn't give a damn. He had to step in. Seeing him, Kinoshita yelled that 40 was a level 35 awakened and ordered him to rip Itsuki into tiny little pieces. Up in the control room, Commander Nento signaled Hayton. Hayton just gave a sharp, wicked grin, nodded, and said he was on it. Rain hammered the arena as Itsuki's magic detection went off. He could feel something coming his way. Someone was hauling tail toward him. His screen popped up again, showing the analysis was sitting at 19%. Before Itsuki could even react, he realized he wasn't facing just one guy. There were more. Suddenly, a figure dropped from the sky, slamming right onto Kinoshita's bodyguard, 40, with massive force. Dust exploded everywhere, but Itsuki just stood there, eyes sharp and focused. His face didn't show a hint of emotion. He watched the new threat closely, then realized it was Instructor Hitten sitting casually on top of Kinoshita's bodyguard. Without even looking back, he just told Itsuki to keep moving forward. Itsuki turned toward Kinoshita, wreathed in glowing purple sparks. He looked down at the shaking coward and told him it looked like his backup was officially out of commission. Kinoshita saw him and panicked. He started stuttering and begging, yapping about his dad being the North District 4 administrator and his brother being in the Salvation League. Drenched in sweat, he warned that touching him would be a huge mistake. Before he could finish, a long, painful scream ripped through the air. A second later, Kinoshita was face down on the pavement, totally out cold. As the rain fell, Itsuki walked away, his coat flapping in the breeze. He glanced up at the control room and whispered that the debt to Chuha was finally paid in full. Inside the room, Choha watched him and blushed, realizing he'd actually done all of that just for her. Instructor Soria was shocked Itsuki actually took down Kinoshita Reiji, but he couldn't figure out why the kid was suddenly staring their way. Meanwhile, the system window showed the analysis was at 99%. He figured if he paused it now, he could reset his stats once during the next round. He stopped the analysis right before it finished. Suddenly, from inside the facility, Saya shouted Itsuki's name. Itsuki froze the second he heard her. His eyes went wide as he recognized that voice. He turned slowly toward the sound and whispered her name. Saya. He saw her standing there with Rukuru and Ibaria. Saya was out in the rain, clutching her arm as the cold wind bit at her. She looked up and softly begged him to hurry inside. She told him he'd catch a cold if he stayed out there. As Itsuki stepped inside, Saya gave him a gentle smile and said it had been a while. Standing right in front of her was Itsuki, who had officially finished in 7th place for this round. Suddenly, Rokoro and Iberia charged at Itsuki, yelling his name. Rokoro was half crying, calling him a jerk out of pure frustration and relief that he was okay. They both tackled him with hugs, crying about how glad they were he was safe. But when they realized they were both hugging him, they started glaring. Rokoro demanded to know who this guy thought he was, crying all over Itsuki. Iberia just pointed at himself, totally confused, asking who he meant. Iberia grinned and raised a fist, declaring himself Itsuki's partner. Hearing that, Rikuru flipped out, yelling that Itsuki never mentioned teaming up with anyone. He straight up called him a traitor. Saya watched them, surprised, while Itsuki just stood there quietly. Soria figured it was pretty rare for Itsuki to actually make friends. Meanwhile, Iberia and Rikuru started bickering. Iberia asked how Itsuki was a traitor and if Rikuru had even been in a duo with him. He demanded to know their official team name. Rikuru snapped back, asking why a name even mattered since they weren't kids. Then he asked if those two actually had a name themselves. Iberia puffed his chest out and said of course they did. Rikuru told him to spill it, while Itsuki, watching from the sidelines, whispered for Iberia to just shut up. But Iberia's eyes sparkled as he proudly announced their team name, Double I. He insisted it took a ton of work to come up with that one. Hearing that, Rukuru hit the floor laughing, wheezing that Double I sounded totally lame. Iberia got heated and shouted that it was a great name. Right then, Instructor Soria stepped onto the platform. He announced that 500 people had made it, and anyone who hadn't arrived was officially disqualified. He said round 2 was starting soon. In the second stage, they'd have to fight disaster beasts solo in the trial grounds for 1 hour. Rukuru got pumped, shouting that it was finally time to get serious. But Iberia looked absolutely horrified when he realized he had to go through the second level all by himself. A huge grin spread across Instructor Heighten's face now that the second stage was here. He'd been waiting for this. He looked at the top 7 participants, wondering what they were made of. These 7 were Kana in first place, and Shion who took the second place spot. Gaku held third place, Saya took fourth, Rikuru was fifth, Iberia hit sixth, and Itsuki secured the 7th spot in the rankings. A bit later, a massive metal structure stood in the center, with crowds gathering from every direction. Itsuki and his crew started heading toward the main entrance. Rikuru looked up and asked if the second round was happening inside. Iberia just muttered that the place felt super gloomy and creepy. Rikuru asked Itsuki why he was still stuck at level 0 after all this time. Was his level really frozen there? Itsuki just gave a quiet nod. He wondered how Itsuki got so powerful with 0 stat growth. Iberia jumped in, dying to know why this level 0 dude was such a beast.